Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing profitable, not painful. My guest is Patty Farmer. She is an award-winning marketing and media strategist, international speaker, podcast host, magazine publisher, and seven-figure event producer. As a global influencer and thought leader, she works with women CEOs, entrepreneurs, and speakers who are experts in their field to help them fully identify their expertise, attract and convert their ideal buyers, gain massive visibility, package their knowledge, and position them in the marketplace to increase sales, leverage the media, and create marketing strategies that are profitable, not painful. Her mission is to help her clients scale their business in a way that creates transformation for both them and their clients, and to make a big impact in the world and bigger deposits in their bank account while designing a lifestyle they want to live. Patty, welcome to Money Heart.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I am so glad you're on the show. This is super cool. Love this concept of like making money and having a lifestyle you enjoy and actually want to live. This is fabulous. I want to get into how you teach people how to be profitable without that pain piece, how to leverage their marketing and media and all the wonderful things you do. But before we get into that, you probably didn't become an award-winning marketer and strategist overnight. Probably not international speaker on day one. Tell us just briefly, how'd you get started? Like, what even inspired you to do this type of work?
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting because I always say that I kind of got into it accidentally, but we sort of know that nothing really happens by accident,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, every big turn or every time I had like the trajectory changed, it was always something that I had been thinking about and made the decision to manifest, right? And I
Right.
had just thought to myself, you know what? I really believe that I have to commit. Like I need to be committed to what I want to do, right? And so every time that I made a commitment to myself, nobody else even heard about it, but I made a commitment to myself that this was the change that I wanted to make. It just seemed like as soon as I made the commitment, then you just back it up with action, right? And not even just action for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I needed to back it with bold and fearless action for me, bold and fearless action. And so I just decided that my husband and we've lived in Las Vegas and we had moved in 2008 to Dallas and I didn't know one single person. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't know anybody. And I think a lot of times we look at ourselves and we go, oh, am I B2B? Am I B2C? What am I going to do? And I kind of had like a 5 minute pity party. And then I said, Patty, put your big girl panties on. You're now in a metroplex where you don't know anybody here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an opportunity. And so what ended up happening is I was waiting for my furniture to get there. And so I took a sticky note out and I put it on the refrigerator and I put 100,000. And my husband came home and he said, what is this? I said, I know I don't know one person right now here, but within 1 year, I'm going to know 100,000 people and I'm going to make $100,000 doing it. And I'm committed to whatever I have to do to make that happen. I actually did it in 9 months. And along the way, I just kept saying, okay, what do I have to do to make it happen? Because I think a lot of times what happens is we know what we want, but what you want and what you're committed to and willing to take action to achieve are not always the same thing.
So very true. So much. I feel like I'm doing that message all the time of, well, I know what to do, but I keep not doing it. I hear that from people. It's like, okay, what is it you're willing to do? What are you going to take action on? What are we putting in the calendar? Like, what's actually happening? So I love that story that you were like, note on the fridge. Here's my daily reminder. That's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. It
Don't
was
get
really
off
kind of
track.
interesting because, I think that what happens is, you can make plans or you can make excuses, right? One
Mm,
or the other. Nobody else is going to know. You're going to do one or you're going to do the other. But here's the thing. Oh, I can't do that because I don't have enough time. Or, oh, I can't do that for whatever the reasons are. But the fact of the matter is you have to make a decision. And one that I used to hear all the time, it was so funny. And I don't know if you hear it, but I would hear all the time, well, it isn't always about money. Money doesn't buy happiness. I'm like, no, money doesn't buy happiness for sure, but it does give you a lot of options. And being broke doesn't buy happiness either.
Being broke does not buy happiness. And I would much rather cry in my luxury car than, on my bike.
That's what I like to say.
But I love your point that, people say money doesn't buy happiness. And you're like, well, being broke doesn't buy happiness. Like, since when does having less money and being less able to do things and less able to serve people make you more happy? Like, I don't.
Totally. And I
Never.
feel like really what I've always known for me is when you do well, you can do good, right?
Yeah.
I think I really believe it. When you do well, you can do good. And I think that if I have a mantra, my mantra is really this: lead with contribution and compensation will always follow.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. Love that. Really provide the value and then you're
Mhm,
going to get compensated. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. So tell us, how do we actually start to become profitable? How do we start leveraging our marketing, our media, things like first, let's even back up. What does that even mean? What's marketing? What's media when we think of that? Because I think people conflate marketing, sales, the whole business
For sure.
process, right?
For sure. For sure. So I think the thing that I
The eye
really,
roll, you're like, oh my gosh.
I know for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
sales and marketing is like peanut butter and jelly for sure, but they are
Yeah.
not the same thing, right?
Right.
So I
Right.
want to say if it's a crowded marketplace and there's a lot of noise, and we know there is right now, right? How are you going to stand out? So when you're thinking about marketing and literally media as well, it's like, how are you going to leverage it? Because I have to tell you, my three favorite words in business are strategy, leverage, and monetize. Those are my three favorite words, and they're the three things that I always help my clients with, right? Because
Mhm.
I mean, people can say and do lazy marketing, which basically is like spaghetti marketing. Let me just throw stuff against the wall and let me just see what will stick, right? Or
Yeah.
they do, hope marketing, which is let me just do something and cross my fingers and hope it will work.
Yeah. Not a
That doesn't
strategy.
work. It just doesn't work. And
Right.
here's the great thing: you don't have to do it yourself. You should be doing what you're a genius at. You should be, working in your brilliance and hiring other people to work in theirs, which is really how I think is one of my secrets to success. But with that said, to answer the question, how do you monetize your marketing and media is really realizing, I think this is the number one thing, that you're not doing it by yourself. So we've all
Mm.
heard the cliche, oh, it takes a village to raise a child. But if it does, it takes a tribe to build a business. So you
Mm.
have to build your tribe. And for me, I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, right? So I'm very careful about who I allow into my circle. Because for me, if you build the circle correctly, if that circle of people that you have surrounded yourself with, right?
Mm.
The whole thing about, oh, who's the 5 people? But I really feel like this: if you're building a network, a community, which is even more important now, if you build a community and you surround yourself and you have a circle, and that circle doesn't inspire you every single day, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. And
Mm.
so I think it is really, really important. So I think that in today's business environment, relationships are the currency, right? And so one of the things I always like to say is, well, if that's true, and it is, how fat is your wallet? Right?
Right.
Is your wallet nice and fat with those relationships? And so I always like to give a visual and say, picture your business right now. And if your business was an ATM machine, are you making more deposits or more withdrawals? Think about the relationships you have. Are you depositing into the people that you're building relationships with? Are you building partnerships, or are you trying to keep everything to yourself, do everything yourself? So you're spread so thin that, you're thinking to yourself, wow, I own my business, but do you really? Or is your business owning you? Because that's the thing that I like to work with my clients on. It's like, we start with, let's design the lifestyle you want to live. And then I'll help you build a business that will support that, not the other way around, because you can own your business own a business and be the CEO, and your business can still own you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know lots and lots of CEOs who are working 80 and 90 hours a week because they haven't built it correctly. So I think that it is really important. And I know it's important to make, like you said in my bio, to make a big impact in the world. We all want to make a difference, right?
Sure.
We're not in the information business. Google's in the information business. We're in the transformation business.
Yeah.
But how do you do it in a way that really serves? And the way to do that is to leverage. And so, how when people think about opportunity, people are always like, oh, I'm looking for ops. I'm looking for an op, a speaking op. I'm looking for, this op, that op. But really, to me, what an op stands for is other people's people. How can you get in front of other people's people? So you can spend lots of time going into Facebook groups. Not that there's anything wrong with them. I have one myself, but you can go into a Facebook group and troll through and try to hope somebody's going to ask a question and you and 50 other people are going to answer it. And you're going to be like, pick me, and hope they do. And all those kind of things, right? That really kind of make you look desperate.
Sure.
And really, you only have a chance if you're one of the first 3 people who saw it, because
Because
by then
after
they've
that
already.
overwhelm and they're not even paying attention anymore.
Exactly, right?
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing, and I'll just give you an example to prove my point there, which is really, what if you did it a little differently? So what if you went and chose a few Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, whichever the case may be, and instead of doing that, you made sure you really targeted the groups so that you know that the people in those groups are your people, not just a group of entrepreneurs, but who are your actual people, right? And you go into that group, and instead of doing what I just said and trolling, you actually connected with the person who is the organizer of that group. And you said, oh, I would love to be of service, to your group. And I'd love to know what's the best way that you think I could do that. Tell me a little bit about what you want to do in the group. What's your vision for the group? I can read the description of the group. What's your vision for the group and how I could support that? And I have to tell you, if you do that, and you're like, I just want to know what's the best way for me to do that, man, they're just going to be all over supporting you in that group, which is going to work a whole lot better than you just trolling, because now you've contacted them, which is the same thing as if we were going to talk about media, the same thing would be about a podcast. And I'm going to give you a really good tip here. So I hope everybody's got to write this down.
Okay, ready.
Because this is probably worth the price of admission, what I'm going to say right now. Oh, actually, the price of admission, that's kind of fun. We're talking about money.
Yeah.
So here's what it's going to be. When you're thinking about wanting to be on a podcast, and so you're looking, on Apple or wherever the places are, you're like, oh, I'd really like to be on that. I want to tell you how I have a 100% success rate. If I decide I want to be on a podcast, I have a 100% success rate. You know why? Because I follow this one thing, which again goes to that lead with contribution first. What everybody wants is for people to do things for them first, and then I'll do something for you. Because what if I do something for you and you don't do that for me? Because we're so afraid to give first, right?
That whole, well, as soon as the fireplace gives me some heat, I'll put some logs on it. You're like, wait, that doesn't work that way.
No, I'm not going to make an intro to someone. I'm not going to do anything, because what if they don't do it for me? That doesn't work. Just in case anybody's thinking out there, that doesn't work.
Right.
But here's what works better. So what I'll do is, if I want to be on somebody's podcast and I'm thinking, okay, is this the right podcast for me? Are these people my right people? Now, remember, my company's Marketing, Media, Money. Camille here, your podcast is about money. So is this do we align?
It's right in your name. That's right.
Yes. And so I will choose that. And then what I like to do is to reach out. First, I go to their website or wherever they have their episodes at. And I go through and I look at them and see, does this align with the value that I would be able to provide? Right.
Yeah.
And then I listen to a few of them. And then when I contact her, I said, you know what? I really loved episode, 116, where you had XYZ person and she talked about this. Oh, I really love that. And so one of two things happens there. You either tell her, this is what somebody talked about, and I feel like I could give a different perspective, another insight on that. They already liked that person and had them on there. Or I would say something like, it seems that this is something that your audience would like. And here's what I could talk about. And because I thought that episode was so great, I already went and left you a review. And then I
Oh,
copy and paste the review and put it in there because reviews don't show up sometimes for like 48 hours. So if they went and checked, they're like, oh no, she didn't. She's lying. Right. So I copy and
sure.
paste the review and then I do that. Now, does that mean what if they didn't have me on and I gave them a review? Well, I already know that their podcast was good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wanted to be on it. Right. And so, yes, that could happen. And oh my goodness, you'd be out a few words. Right.
I
So
wrote a whole review. Took
I
me three
know, right?
minutes.
So do that. But here's what I'm going to tell you. If somebody reads them, they're like, "Oh, you already left me a review," and then I see the review and you're already telling me about, I'm like, who would not want that person to be on your podcast? Because now
Right.
they're going to promote your podcast. And so you're showing up a lot better than pick me. I'd really love to be on your podcast.
Yes,
Right. And
exactly.
then when you are on that podcast, you want to make sure that you promote. And I'm going to give people another tip, probably not as profitable as that tip, but a good one, which is this: always try to find some way when you're on somebody's podcast to say something great about them. I love this podcast. I listened to this podcast. Camille, I actually loved what you talked about so much. I had you on my podcast,
Yes.
already and stuff. So like, I always like to say something because a good podcast host is going to spotlight her guest. That's why they brought their guest to share. She's not going to
Right.
talk about herself the whole time, but it's really kind of nice if you could kind of give her a plug and kind of give her an opening so that they could say a little bit of something about what they do. I mean, they are the one paying for the podcast and all they have their own agenda too for why they're doing it,
Right.
mostly to support their audience. But the
Right.
fact of the matter is, it is kind of nice if somebody does that. So there's so many easy things you can do that'll take up 5 minutes that you can do if you just take your eyes off yourself and of what you want and think about, well, how can I serve somebody else first, which
Yeah.
kind of leads to the lead with contribution, and compensation will follow.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Absolutely. Contribution and compensation will fall. And you have brought a ton of contributions for us today because those were tips that aren't even on your list that we're about to share.
That's right.
Because you've got these kind of 7 things and they all start with P. So that's kind
The
of fun. You know,
seven P's of marketing. That's what I say.
7 P's of
Starts
marketing.
with
Yes. So
Patty.
hit us with the 7 P's and kind of tell us like what they mean and how maybe we can start to make a little shift or start to implement this in our business if we're thinking, hey, that stuff that she said before about profitable isn't really happening for me. And what could I do to maybe get on track a little bit better than where I'm at right now, if I wanted to.
Absolutely. So the first P is product. Could be a
Mhm.
service, right? Because not everybody has a product, but whether you know it or not, you may be the product.
That's right.
Right? You may be the product, right? So really making sure that you are showing up really good as that product, right? If you're the
Mhm.
face of your business, make sure that even though we know we can be on Zoom and we can be all these things in yoga pants and all that kind of stuff, but kind of show up,
Right.
in a way that really kind of supports what your brand is, right? You are the product. So show up as the product. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing.
Hmm.
Second thing is price. Make sure you have the right pricing strategy. Pricing strategy is so important. It's one of my specialties because the fact of the matter is, if you don't charge enough, people will think it's just fluff. They're like, oh, this is $19.99. What am I going to get for $19.99? And the fact of the matter is, in the days where we are now, people value time more than anything.
Yeah.
And if somebody told me they were doing something for $19.99, I'm like, I don't even know what you could show me for $19.99, right?
Right.
Then I'm going to buy. Like,
Right.
so
Right.
really honestly, make sure that your pricing matches again what your brand is and what's the value. But then again, don't get on social media, go to people's websites, say, oh, wow, they're charging $5,000. I'm worth $5,000. Is the value that you're bringing to them $5,000? So pricing is super important.
Hmm.
And of course, between $20 and $5,000, there's a lot of space. But my point really is that you have to be really careful in your pricing strategy. It will make or break it.
It
And
absolutely will. It really,
it,
really will. And
it
so
really will.
interesting people get so nervous to charge more because they think that somebody won't pay it. And I love what you just pointed out of if you charge too little, they won't think it's valuable. And if that person starts working with you, whatever service you, so you're providing a service, if you charge too little and they start working with you, they're likely to not really follow through on the activities and the stuff that you tell them to do or whatever you're providing because they're like, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't a big enough investment. So then they don't get the result that you promised because they didn't do the work because it wasn't painful enough for them to sign up for it. You didn't really hit the mark.
It is.
Oh.
It really is. I always like to say when I'm working with my clients and we're working on pricing, which is really a very important part of what we do, is you can start out by doing something that I call a pricing ladder, which so basically you say, okay, in the next 6 months, I'd like, this is just an example. So remember, this is just an example.
Example only.
I want 20 new clients. Okay,
Sure.
right? But I want to preface it by saying this. I'm going to break the ladder down for you because I think it's super powerful and it makes it a lot easier to digest and have confidence and build confidence. But what I want to say is, here is what will break you. You cannot ask somebody else to invest in you if you haven't invested in you. So what I like to tell my clients is if they say, oh, Patty, can you help me come up with a $5,000 program? The very first thing I say is, have you ever wrote a check for $5,000 to somebody else? And if they're like, oh no, the biggest check I wrote is like $500. I'm like, well, it's not going to work. It's not authentic. People are going to be able to see through that. You don't get to just pick a random number and decide you want to charge that because other people can do the work, right? So invest in yourself because you can't ask somebody else to invest in you if you're not willing to invest in you. So I just want to preface it by that. But in a pricing, right? Is that not true?
Yeah. Because if you have never purchased a program that is the price you wish to charge, you don't know what you get in a program.
And you haven't earned the right to do it.
Yeah.
You just haven't earned the right.
Yeah.
And people will figure it out, right?
Sure will.
So in a pricing ladder, this is something that's super easy. And I'm just going to give round numbers and I'm saying 20, again, adjust it to whatever your business is. So I always like to say when somebody's just, oh, Patty, I'm so scared to do that. I was only charging $500. And I'm like, well, you just told me everything that you do for them. And I would think that if you told me you could do all those things and it was only $500, I'd be thinking, oh, well, then you're just going to kind of tell me about them. You're not going to actually help me with them, right? So you really want to be clear. So what I always like to say is start out small, meaning this is what your value is. And so say, I'll just give you an example. So say you're going to say, okay, I feel comfortable that I'm going to charge $1,000 for my product, right? For my service, right? I'm going to offer this program. It's going to be $1,000. Okay, do it. Go sell 5 of them. And if you can sell 5 of them and it's easy, guess what? The next 5, you're going to sell it for $1,500.
Right.
And if that's easy to sell, then the next 5, you're going to sell 2,000. So you're going to raise it up incrementally until you kind of the market isn't bearing that yet. Right. Or to be totally honest, here's the thing, sell it first, then create. And you can only sell something what you have faith in yourself. Are you delivering it? If you don't see the value in your work, nobody else will see the value in their work either. So pricing strategy is super, super important. I could literally talk the whole rest of our time just on how important and what you have to go through to have a good pricing strategy. Next thing is packaging. You need to make sure that you are packaged, but you have to make sure that your products and services are packaged as well. A lot of times people don't package their stuff well. They like to kind of go with what I like to say are features, and they'll say, oh yeah, you're going to get this. And I'm going to do a, 30-minute call and I'm going to do this and this and this. Well, those are features that people don't buy features. People buy results.
Yes.
That's what they want to know.
What are the transformation? What is it doing for me? And why do I even care?
That's right. So it's all about that. So make sure you're packaging yourself in a way that tells them that. I have to tell you, I will do an event and I will tell people what I have. And then I will, kind of go through what the results are. And then sometimes they'll say, oh, well, how often are we going to meet? Is it going to be weekly? And I'm like, those are just details. Because the fact of the matter is, I have some clients that say, Patty, I want to meet for 90 minutes twice a month. I have clients that say, oh, no, Patty, I need to meet every week. I have clients who say, I want to meet the first 3 weeks and I need the fourth week off for implementation.
Right.
That's details and how I'm going to serve you in the way that you need to be served.
Yep.
But what the results you're going to get, it doesn't matter which one of those you picked, right? So don't get caught up in details,
Yeah.
right? Talk about the results that they can get. So package that correctly. Number 4, positioning. Positioning in the marketplace correctly is super, super important. I always like to say, when you think about going to the grocery store, when you're at the grocery store and you are looking at the shelf, there's items that are at right at your eye view. And then there's the ones that are on the bottom, and then there's the ones on the top shelf, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
here's what I see a lot. Not only are not people doing that, they're literally at the end cap at the end of the aisle on clearance. So
Yeah.
don't put yourself on clearance,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Because
Don't
like
put
really
yourself in
think
the
about it.
bargain bin where someone has to dig 2.5 feet
Right.
down to find you.
Like, don't be that person, right?
Don't be that.
Position yourself in the marketplace correctly. Number 5 is people. And what I mean by that is making sure you're talking to the right people. So here's something I see all the time. I have to tell you, it's kind of a pet peeve for me because I'm in marketing and I'm very, very good at it, is people will say to me, oh, Patty, I really know I really need to get clear on my target market. And if I just knew what my target market was, and here's what I say to that. It's like, yes, that's step 1, target
Right.
market. But what I want to help you do is to know who your target buyers are. And the difference between your target market and your target buyer, so I hope this is a writer downer for them, is
Okay.
your target market are people who have the problem that you have the solution to. That's your target market. Target buyers are people who have the problem that you have the solution to, but they're actually actively looking for the solution. So yes, start with your target market, but focus on your target buyers.
Right.
So all of these things that I want to help my clients with, it's like, yes, we're going to find the right people, because if you're sitting here thinking, oh, I need to, not charge that because they say they won't pay that, they might not be the right people. You have to be in front of the right people. So that's important.
Yes. And
Number
I love that
6,
you point that out because as a coach, have so many people that I have a little conversation with them and I might know like they're just not ready. They're not ready to listen. They're not ready to solve this. They're living in the phase where they love complaining about it. But that's what they love right now. And so it's like, okay, come back around. Maybe you'll be looking for the solution and ready to do some work later on. So I love that you
totally,
say that. I love that you're like,
absolutely,
they got to have the problem and you have the solution, but they got to be ready for the solution. Because if
exactly. So
they're not
that's really
ready,
important.
don't matter. You
That's
can
right.
talk all day. Let them
That's
go.
right.
Just let them go. They can circle back when they're actually ready.
That's right. So
Yeah.
number 6 is partnerships. You don't
Okay.
have to do it alone. So here's what I want to say. A lot of times we all talk about, here's our strengths,
Mhm.
and then we say, oh, and these are our weaknesses. I don't like to say we have weaknesses. We just have things that are not our strengths, which is where the opportunity for growth is. And here's why. You can have all kinds of things, and I'll use myself as an example. I do a lot of things that I am really, really good at, but something that I can do, but I don't like to do it, and it's not my strength to do it, which means that if I'm doing it, we're going to get to the marketplace a lot slower, which
Right.
means it's going to cost me time, money, and energy. Right. So,
Exactly.
where for me, that is writing copy, right? Now I can do marketing copy really, really good because that's what I do, but writing copy. So, when my clients come to like, this is my copy, oh, I can totally make it all marketable for them and stuff because that's what I do for a living. But
Right.
for my own self, I just don't like to write copy. I struggle with it. I can do it. It's why I don't blog anymore. And so for that reason, right? You don't
Yeah.
have to do every single thing. If somebody tells you, oh, you have to do this, believe me, it's like going to the gym. There's a lot of different machines that will work that same muscle. So if there's absolutely something that's a deal breaker, you have resistance to it, then hire a good person who's going to tell you another way that you can get that same result doing it a little differently.
Yes.
So partnerships and having partnerships with people. So whenever I'm going to do something that I know I'm going to have to write copy, like, I have something new that I'm going to do, like the very first person I want to partner with is a copywriter. And guess what? Most copywriters aren't really marketers. So they love the idea that they're going to partner with somebody who's going to do all the marketing. And it's like, great, I'll do all
Yeah.
the marketing. You write the copy, right? And we will collaborate on something. We get to the marketplace faster. We serve both our audience, right? And it's a win for me, win for you, and a win for our audience. So there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And then number 7, it's really about pitch/promote.
Mhm.
Right. So depending upon which, sometimes it's how are you pitching yourself? Sometimes
Right.
it's how are you promoting yourself? Right. And it's really like, how are you doing that? Right. Because a lot of times what happens is, and I think this is really, really important. I'll try to keep it short. I don't know how much time we have left, but here's what I want to
We're
say.
okay. We're okay.
We're okay. All right,
Yeah.
good. All right. Because here's what I want to say. In the customer journey, what happens is, so the first part of the customer journey is when somebody's just kind of interested. No, actually, excuse me, that's the second part. First part is when they're just becoming aware. Like they're not even really sure if they have that problem. They're just kind of becoming
Like,
aware
oh, is that even a
of it.
problem? Do I have
Yeah,
that
like maybe
problem?
like I'm
Yeah.
starting to notice this. Like maybe I'm kind of have a problem with that. I didn't realize maybe I'm not so good at this. Maybe I need some help. So they're just kind of becoming aware. The second part of the journey when they move along is that they're interested. Now they're kind of interested in doing something about it. The third part is now they're interested and now they're evaluating. Now they're like, okay, I realize that I'm interested in finding a solution. And now I'm kind of evaluating, like, who could it be that might actually be the best person for me to help me and be that solution. And then the part after that is when they actually purchase. And then after that is, how do you make them a raving fan so that they tell everybody else about you and send you lots of referrals. But for right this second, I want to talk about the first 3, which is awareness, interested, and evaluate. Here's where people make the biggest mistake, and especially on social media. You need to speak to people that are in all 3 of those areas. Your goal is to move them from one to the next one. But here's the mistake people make. They get on social and they talk to them all at the same time. In the same blog post, in the same post on social, you're talking to them all. And so, of course, they're not listening to you. So you do need to talk them all one at a time. So when you're writing a post, when you're posting something on social, you should be asking yourself, okay, so who am I talking to right now? Am I talking to somebody who's just aware of of the problem they have that I can solve? Are they interested, or are they actually evaluating? You do have to talk to all 3, but not in the same post.
Right.
And that's how you help move them along. So this isn't like spray and pray, right? And hope that it works. This is
No spaghetti method here.
That's right. No, this is where you really have a plan and you're really thinking about, how should I promote this properly? So maybe you might do something like, because if you go back and somebody's actually thinking about evaluating and you're spending all your time in awareness, they're like, wait, are you not like, so you do have to pay attention to what is going on. And here's a little key thing to note. If you're beating yourself up because you don't think you're getting engagement on your posts, and this is really true for LinkedIn, people who are getting ready to reach out to you to purchase from you, and they're evaluating, they're watching, they are not going to engage on your posts.
Yeah.
Because what they don't want is to be liking and doing things and have you reach out to them to say, oh, I see that you posted, because everybody will do that. And then they think, oh, you're ready for me to sell. Ha, ha, ha.
And
And then you want to start.
That's right.
Yeah, we know that, right?
I know.
And
Well,
so,
I know this because I do it. Like if I'm watching somebody, I am totally not, I don't talk to them, I don't message them, I don't press like, but I look at every single thing they posted. Like I will
because you're waiting
through,
to see if they are the right person, and then
I
you
want to
will.
see if they're
I have
legit.
to tell you, I was just talking to somebody about this last week, and I noticed that like the last 3 people who hired me had not even engaged on not any post of mine at all. But when they contacted me, they said, you know what, Patty, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I love your post. I'll even name a few of them. And I'm like, okay. Oh, I heard you speak on this webinar. I saw you do this Facebook Live. And you're like, wow, they never even engaged because they were watching. Right. So never get caught up on that. I want to tell you, you can't quantify a like or comments, whatever. You really can't do that. Don't worry about that. I don't care what social media platform you are on, people are watching you. You can make lots and lots of money without ever worrying about that. Yes, there
Yeah.
are people who have paid ones and they get lots and lots of engagement. Yes, they
Right.
do.
Well,
Um,
I used to think that that was a problem I was having because I was posting. I went through, I got good at posting. I started posting much more regularly. I'm doing this all the time. And then people were coming out of the blue and being like, hey, I saw your post. I really liked it. And I was like, really? Yeah, on LinkedIn, the post that you posted 3 weeks ago. I'm like, you're telling me about a post from 3 weeks ago today that you just that okay. No like, no comment, no nothing. And so it did exactly what you're saying,
Stay
totally
with your
shifted my
plan.
view of like just keep putting the message out there and like you said, talk to those different groups because they're figuring it out. That person could have been watching me for 3 months and they might have gone from initial awareness and we're moving down the line now to the okay, I'm almost ready to have you help me solve my problem. So yeah,
So yeah, but what
you never
happens
know.
is people get frustrated and you can kind of see that. So don't
Mm-hmm.
think about that. Think like you're talking to one person. This is where they are. They're this customer, and I'm talking to them. What do I need to say to them? Right?
Yeah.
And if you do that and then, you mix it up, like try to say, I would kind of say, try to do one to each, like one awareness, one interested, one evaluate a week,
Yeah.
right? So this way, if in a week they're following you, maybe they're missing some, so they'll go back and look, but then they will hit all of them. So wherever they are, they will be in there. Don't worry about engagement. Be
Yeah.
real, be authentic, be genuine, right? You engage, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I think that is really important. So those are like the 7 P's. Really, honestly, I'm just going to tell you, if you just do those 7 things, realize that it's all about building real relationships, right? That will create revenue, they'll get you results, but leveraging your ideal promotional partners and global influencers. It is super important for you to do it. Don't worry about, oh, yes, it is about reciprocity. I understand the law of reciprocity really well. But guess what? The more you give first, like here's another example. So, another example I always love to say is what we would like to have happen. Like, so I'm a speaker. And when we speak, we really love it if, the host of where we're speaking, we'll usually, not me, but people will wait a few days and then like they'll write to them and they'll say, oh, I really loved, speaking at your XYZ event. And I would really love it if you would give me a testimonial or if you'd leave me a LinkedIn recommendation saying, how I did and how your audience loved me or whatever. Right. And stuff. And so everybody knows that. We all want that.
Yeah.
But
I
here's what
see
I
where you're
always want to
going though.
say.
I'm guessing you're going to tell us like what you told up before with the podcast. How about go evaluate the event? Yeah.
Yes, and I leave them. And so here they are. And I go leave them and say, oh, it was a pleasure to speak at this event. Did you just get to shamelessly plug yourself while you're not talking about yourself? Right. So you get to say, it was a pleasure to speak at your event. It was, the audience was so dynamic. The communication was flawless. Everything went seamless. What a great host. I can't wait to share with all my peeps your next event. And then when you sign it and then you put like your website, whatever. People are like, wow, nobody ever does that to me. Right. And that's really good.
Yeah.
And then really honestly, this does have something to do with this, but this is probably, if I was going to tell you something that you could do today, like today you could do it. Here's what I do. Every time I meet somebody, like whether we meet in person or whether we meet on a call, when we're getting ready to wrap, don't you think that the last 5 minutes of a call is the most uncomfortable? Because now you're like, okay, what are we going to do now? Are we going to ask each other? That's always the most
Sure.
uncomfortable
Yeah, it's,
spot,
it's
right?
mildly awkward. Yeah, I got you.
Right. Because now
Yeah.
everybody like don't want to sell. Like, oh, do I pitch now? Which I believe you should never try to sell anything. And I literally tell people when I invite them to a call, I always say, I tell them right up front, just so that you know, this is a get to know you call. It's a pitch free call.
I
And
do that
sometimes
too.
when we're sharing what they're doing, it's like, oh, so Patty, what would it be like to work with you? I'm like, no, I told you it was a pitch free call. Oh, I
Right.
know, but we're already on the call. I really want you to tell you. I'm like, no, I
Nope.
told you it was a pitch free call.
You
And
got to
sometimes
stay in
they'll really,
integrity with
really
that.
push, or they're like, no, no, I really want to know. Well, then they kind of really do want to work with you, and you stay in what you said, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're asking you to tell, which is not the same as pitching them. But then one of the things I always like to do at the end is like, we really should have an ask. But here's what people do. I want to say it's a mistake, but it's probably not as effective, which is that at the end of that call, especially if it's somebody that you really don't know, somebody either did an introduction for you or you connected on social, right? So now you're on this call. Hopefully it's been a good call. I mean, I wouldn't do this if it wasn't a good call, but if it was a good call, I literally would say, so I would really love to serve and support you. How can I best do that? Do you have an ask for me? And they literally, as soon as I say that, as bold as that, do you have an ask for me? They literally don't know what to say because they're thinking to themselves, I don't know, what could I say? Whatever. So here's what I get 98% of the time. 98% of the time, they will say to me, well, you know what, Patty? Very few people ever ask me that. Why don't you go first? Because they kind of want to see
They
what
need
I'm
some
going to
time to
say,
think.
so they
Stall,
know,
stall.
what they can say, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And here's what I always say: something easy. And so I always say, well, you know what? I'm spending a lot of time being on podcasts. I have I have made a plan that I'm going to be on 100 podcasts this year. So my ask would be like, who do you know that has a podcast, or maybe somebody recently that you saw that was on a podcast? I'd really love that information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, can you guarantee that I'm going to get on that podcast? Can you go pitch me? I didn't ask that. I just said, can you introduce me or tell me about, some great podcasts that you listen to? Like, that's easy. I could literally kind of go off like 50 of them right now. That's
Right.
not that hard to ask. It's an easy ask. Is it beneficial to you if they do? Absolutely. Because guess what happens? And then if they say, oh, I absolutely can do that, let me tell you, blah, blah, blah. And then I just say, is it okay that if I use your name when I reach out to them? Because when you go reach out to that person, they're going to say, oh, wow, they were talking about me. And now they look really good to that person too. So literally, it's just such an easy, easy ask. When I'm done with that, and now we've done the ask, I always say, and this always sets me apart, in case you didn't think I should be set apart. So let me kind of end that for you right there
Yeah.
on how I am value based. I will literally say, people are blown away when I do it. Feel free to borrow it. I will say, well, let's take out our phone because I really want to make sure that I serve you. And I'm like, can you take out your phone? So it doesn't matter whether we are like, let's get our phone out. And they're like, what are we going to do? Right. And I'll ask them, I'm like, well, depending upon what kind of business they are, I'm like, are you on Yelp? Do you have a Facebook business page? Are you on Google My Business? I ask them, and I
Mm-hmm.
literally have us take out our phone. If they tell me they have a Facebook business page, I go to their Facebook business page right there while we're on the phone. They do too, to mine, and I leave them a 5-star review. You do not have to have hired somebody to give them a 5-star review. You can literally say they were so
Oh, yeah.
genuine. I mean, you could say whatever you want. Leave them a
So
five
easy.
star review. Leave them a LinkedIn recommendation if you feel comfortable. Say you're going to leave them a review their podcast. Oh yeah, Patty, I have. I'll leave you a review on your podcast. Like whatever it is. Oh, I'll write something on your Google My Business. So you have served each other right there. And they're so happy that you're doing it for them. They're like, oh my gosh, I have literally had somebody say, I have all them. Like, I have time. Can we do this? And literally been on the phone for longer than our conversation was together, literally doing all these things for each other. And it's a really good way to get a lot of 5-star reviews, a lot of reviews on your podcast, and a lot of LinkedIn recommendations or
Yeah.
testimonials. You just have to come up with the idea. And here's what they always say: oh, wow, Patty, I never would have thought of that. Now, I'm in marketing. So do you think that when I'm doing all these things, you're thinking, man, this girl's really, really good? Like maybe I ought to think about hiring her, like
She
to,
seems to know how to do this marketing thing. Yeah.
right. So here's, like, I hope that really for your audience right here, like literally for all the things that I've shared, like just if all of them don't work for you, just take one or two. But
Yes.
please, I'm going to challenge you, take bold, fearless action.
I love that. Thank you. This has been amazing. What are you most excited about right now? What's going great in your world?
The thing that's going really great is, so marketing, media, and money is my brand. And we just had our 5-year anniversary for the magazine, the Marketing Media Money
Ooh,
magazine. And
congratulations.
I actually would love to give your audience like the free magazine. It's free. You can subscribe right now. We're giving away a lifetime subscription for free.
Okay.
And they can just go to www.marketingmediamoney.com. They don't have to put and, just marketingmediamoney.com. They can grab that. Because I'm working so much right now, I love giving resources, right? They can go to M3, which stands for Marketing Media Money. So go to www.m3biz, B-I-Z, quiz, m3bizquiz.com. And I have to tell you, I designed this for our anniversary. It'll take you like less than 3 minutes. And you will, if you never speak to me, you never connect with me, you will walk away with that assessment going, oh, wow, I didn't know this about myself. And it will tell you where you are doing great and where some next steps could be, whether you ever contact me or not. It's just my gift to you to make sure that literally you can just take away some of these things that I said. And of course, you can connect with me everywhere by just going to my website, pattyfarmer.com.
I love that. That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so
You're so
much. This has
welcome.
been amazing. And for all of our listeners and viewers, we're going to put those links in the show notes. So it'll be super easy for you to find all of those and go grab all the free resources that Patty's got. She's also on social media at Patty Farmer CEO. So you can go find her there too. Where's your favorite social media hangout, Patty?
LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn. Yeah, yeah, we'll find you on LinkedIn.
For sure.
This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Such great information. So many actionable items there that we can totally do. So yes, love it, love it, love it. Thank you as well to all of our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. I'm a business optimization coach, financial educator, author, and speaker. You can contact me and find out what I'm up to through my website, CamilleDiaz.com, and follow me on social media at Cam Unfiltered. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart at MoneyHeart Show, and our website is moneyheartshow.com. Patty, are you ready with our money mantra for today that you sent over? Because I always love to end with the money mantra. So what have you got?
Absolutely. So my money mantra is not in my DNA to be broke. I have the power to reset my money story.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.